Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Outmarket.pro Podcast, coming to you live from Clearwater Beach. Uh, I've never done this before, so we're going to try it. Ashley Evans, my guest today, is game, so we'll see how it goes. Um, so, whether you're a business owner, HR professional, or simply curious about what's next in workforce strategy, you're in the right place. Today, we're joined by Ashley Evans, sales consultant at Dominion Payroll. With over 3.5 years of consulting and more than a decade leading strategic HR operations, Ashley brings a powerful blend of firsthand HR experience and cutting edge workforce solutions. Glad to have you here, Ashley, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. I wish I was on the beach with you.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that. I'll issue an invitation next time. We'll do it live.
Sounds great.
Okay. So, I think this is a topic that very few people, except for HR people, really know the scope of what um, payroll companies do these days. And my best information is that the services have grown broadly and deeply over the past 5 to 10 years. So, with that assumption, let's talk about some of the services. It's not it's not just for payroll anymore. There's lots of adjunct services that you guys provide. So let's launch into it. And why don't we start with um, what drew you to this field in the first place?
Yeah, so in my background, and where I really like working with Dominion and payroll providers is that it gives small businesses those resources that the big companies had at their fingertips. And it's really that integration that provides that great employee experience. So you hit on it of it's a lot more than payroll. It's the full employee experience from pre-hire to retire. But it's really what a small business needs to have to stay competitive in the marketplace.
Very good. Well, let's let's just start with the basic, which is payroll, and talk
Yeah,
about how that service has grown and changed over the years and where we are with it now.
yeah. So payroll has changed a lot kind of post pandemic, where you have now a lot of multi states, even companies that may have had a smaller footprint. People have moved and kind of stayed working for the same company. So you'll see a lot of multi-state. Payroll's really grown in just the tax liability and that piece. But I think that's the biggest piece is just that virtual employee. And, with a lot of the technology shifts, people can work from just about anywhere. So it used to be very uncommon if you had a business that had 5 employees. They were all, in the Louisville market, maybe Kentucky and Indiana. Now you may have a Florida thrown in, a Wisconsin, couple different places. That's been a major shift.
Yeah, and I forgot to say that you are located in Louisville, Kentucky,
Yep.
or Louisville, as the natives call it. Um, and I know that your company is nationwide. Can you work with HR professionals or business owners in any state, or are you bound?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Nope, any state, and we pay in all 50.
okay. Just U.S. or international? Any
Just US.
international?
Yes,
Okay,
no, we stay in US.
okay. So let's talk about some of these associated services, maybe starting with the ones that are most desired by companies when they approach
Yeah.
you.
So I mean, it's really an integration. I think people, kind of forget payroll has all of your sensitive information. So depending upon the company and the more automated the process is, so a time and attendance and a scheduling that's integrated into payroll are real big key pieces, especially, onboarding in high turnover industries. So restaurants, daycares, if you can pull in all of that employee information and automate that onboarding as well as offboarding process, those are real key advantages and time savers for the business owner.
Okay.
Full suite of services. It's one of those, that's the beauty of kind of offering all the different services, is that it's very customizable. Dominion has a team that will actually run your payroll. They will get in there, learn your timekeeping, and process your payroll each week. There's proactive HR. There's also, just HR that you can get the information for your questions. So it's really customizable for each of the business's owner needs. And that's part of our process is, setting down, kind of understanding how are you doing things today and what's your goal going forward in the future, and then kind of mapping out that road plan.
What about benefits?
Yeah,
Employee benefits?
absolutely. So employee benefits are really kind of across the board, depending upon each of the different, there is, the health insurance, the voluntary, there's different systems that will integrate with that to make it a seamless open enrollment where you're doing it in a single sign-on. The communication of any of those life changes, if you have an employee that got married, changed their benefits, that's communicating to payroll. A lot of times when we start doing discoveries, we find that those changes aren't taking place in the systems after open enrollment. People aren't going back to check that periodically. So it's major savings to a business if, they're not catching that somebody's been on a marital plan for healthcare, but only paying a single rate. Other pieces for it, 401k integration, huge. That's a major benefit that employers can offer to stay competitive in the landscape. And a lot of cost advantages and tax advantages to offering a 401k. So anytime we're meeting with a small business owner, it's definitely something that we're considering and discussing, just because it's an awesome benefit that they can add.
What about and I don't know the genre of this, but Aflac and other add-ons?
Yeah. So all of your different voluntary benefits can be added into it. So be that if it's a company paid disability, company paid life insurance, but each of those can be added. Other ones that you're seeing on the market, pet insurance is a new one that's coming up, legal service, long-term care. It's all kinds of different benefits that you can offer to your employees, and be it, a payroll deduction or a paid service that you offer, a paid benefit.
Even down to, I'm really stretching to see what your
Yeah.
scope is. How about down to credit counseling? Not counseling, credit
Yes.
monitoring.
So awesome program that we just partnered with ZayZoom is Earned Wage Access, where employees can get $200 payroll advances, no cost. If they want an instant, it's $5. That also has a budgeting software with it that will take and kind of look at your pay, what you're paying out, and your different pieces, and do a proactive credit counseling as well.
Very good. I was really punching at the edges of the of the bag on that one. Are you partnering with vendors for each of these other services, or do you handle any of them in-house?
Yeah, so kind of couple different options for the benefits. Dominion does not do any of that in-house, so we partner with a variety of brokers on both the voluntary as well as health benefits and group plans set up for that. Same thing with 401k and retirement. We can work with your existing relationships. We also offer one, so just kind of depending upon where the client is for that piece. Workers' comp insurance, there's an integrated pay-as-you-go workers' comp, so it's tied into payroll. You're not doing the workers' comp audit at year end. So it's really customizable to what works best for each business owner and their existing relationships.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be a cost savings because you're a huge group.
Yes.
So it's like them joining another group, and you being able to negotiate lower rates for things and getting sweet deals from your vendors.
Absolutely. There's a lot of cost advantages to bundling the services and kind of that piece. And that's where it really kind of takes that meeting of sitting down and figuring out, okay, where are you today? What's the long-term plan and the goal? And then how are we going to get there?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Are there any that major services or even moderate services that we haven't talked about?
I was going to say we haven't talked on kind of the hiring and applicant tracking. So there's different options for that, posting to the job boards and kind of that internal communication. Other pieces on it, HR's very much a hot topic. So there's a variety of programs where, you can just get the services so that you stay compliant with your labor posters. You can actually have an HR generalist that you're discussing each of your internal HR issues with. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the big pieces that you hit. Other pieces of it are the integration. So Dominion uses iSolve for the back end of technology. If you're a restaurant using Toast for your clock in and clock out, we'll integrate so that you're not hand keying all of that information, but it's going into a payroll system. Other ones that are kind of up there, MindBody. I mean, there's hundreds of integrations for kind of the system. So any process that is manual where the systems aren't communicating, looking and figuring out, okay, how can we automate this? Because the reality is payroll's an ongoing thing. You're either doing it every week, every 2 weeks. And anytime we can automate and take out that human process of it, it ultimately reduces the errors and then kind of overlooking it.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the HR, back to the HR services.
Yeah.
Can you guys contract to be an outsourced or contract one of your people to be an outsourced HR manager and actually do the interviewing, do the hiring, or do your people just do consulting with the companies?
We consult. We want the business owners to have that hands-on approach. So we will give you the guides, give you the step-by-steps, but ultimately we want you to be the one doing the interviewing and doing that. Locally, I also partner with several other people that will come in and be that face for you if you want somebody that is more of that hands-on. So it just kind of depends, but we'll give the employees the training. And that piece for it. Other piece that we didn't even hit on is a learning management system. So by having that tied into payroll, you can have all managers do the different trainings that they need to do, be it sexual harassment, be it whatever the different OSHA training is, kind of the different pieces based on their job categories.
Mm-hmm. What about employee workbooks, manuals?
Yeah. So we will do a handbook. Part of the HR services is writing your handbook with you, kind of, figuring out, okay, what's your attendance policy? What's your vacation policy? Writing that in, integrating that into payroll so that the employees, when they log in, get a message to sign off on it, automating your review process so that you've got a paper review process. All of our services come with a basic employee review. That's what most people use, but there's other options for it as well.
Mm-hmm. And okay, I got it. There was one other question. Let's see. I'll have to come back to it.
I was going to say, I'll pick on you right now. Vacation time off request. You can build in those different systems. You can have it set up where employees can go in the negative. There's all of the different options when you set that up, but having it track it. Do you want employees to earn that based on a rolling calendar year? Do you want them to earn it on their start date and kind of that piece? So that's a nice system that'll keep track of that as well.
Mm-hmm. What I was going to say is, as the owner of our company, fortunately, I don't have to ask permission to take a vacation. But I'm working. Actually, I live here in Clearwater, so it's really no vacation. So, you know how it is when you live at a place. Let's dance around this sensitive topic. And I think I know the answer, but let's just dance around it a little bit. DEI has gone from mandatory if you have a big company to a nasty word. And how do you're just offering consulting and ancillary services to people who want it. So I assume that as it has gone out of favor, you just don't offer it, or only if requested. That sort of training.
That we will kind of do. And I mean, I think people need to kind of consider how they want to stay competitive in the landscape as well, for the talent pool. But, we're going to follow the legalities that are aroused with it. And then, ultimately you want to make good hiring decisions and consider all aspects of it.
Good luck staying current with it.
I tell people I get the same news as you. It's been a lot of discussions on I-9 and documenting that. That's the nice part is the payroll system can keep up with the certifications. So be it that you need to keep up with driver's licenses and remind people on a renewal. That's all adaptive, but it all keeps up in the system, and that's how we stay, up to date.
If somebody wanted a consulting service like that, or any other topic, sexual harassment, these seminar types of topics, do you have people that can provide those? Vendors? How do you handle those sorts of HR related topics?
In the seminars and that, if it's something very customizable, that's where it's kind of partnering with local people. Most of the learning management is going to be kind of your catalog of your typical training courses, and then kind of those external partnerships for something more specific.
Okay. What haven't we? Well, let's see. Give us your pitch. Pretend that I'm a new prospect, a business owner of a small business. I've never done this one before. Maybe it's the beach that's giving me some extra juju on this podcast. So you've got a new employer. Let's say they provide just B2B services like an accounting firm or something like that. Let's say they're a small company, small firm. So professional services, just generically. Let's say they've got 10 people. And do you have a lower bound where if it's not X number of employees, you really can't help them?
No, I mean, so we can do payrolls from 1 up to, a couple thousand. You're going to stay on the same system. It's a much different conversation of kind of what services and kind of what add-ons you need. So that 10 employee, it's a matter of sitting down with you and figuring out, okay, what keeps you up at night? What are the different obstacles that you have when it comes to payroll? How are you currently doing it? Is it a manual process, and what that looks like? And then, what we're doing long term. Onboarding and training really makes a lot of sense if it's a very high turnover, and what your turnover looks like. So just figuring out what the landscape of the business is, and then the service is customized from there.
Okay. So you would do a discovery call first.
Yes.
Find out all about what we do, how we do it, what we currently offer, what we'd like to offer, and go from there.
Absolutely. And it's one of those where we may sit down right now and kind of figure out, okay, this is where you're at. And then we're going to touch base in another 6 months to figure out if you want to add a 401k, if you want to kind of add those other services. Those may be stuff that we discuss later as well.
Mm-hmm. What's the sales cycle for this typically? And
really,
is there a season?
So a lot of people like to change at the quarters. A lot of people will start doing evaluations for year end. So that's a very common. The nice part is that as you switch payroll providers, we do a per payroll. So we're going to pull in the historical data. So you don't have to do it at year end. You can do it kind of any time of year. This is also a time of year that people will start evaluating if they're in open enrollment for their benefits and kind of that piece. So it really just depends on the business and kind of that piece. But year end definitely tends to be a heavier period where a lot of people will make the changes of just a new year and a new start.
Yeah. Do you offer some incentives to people mid-year, first quarter to encourage so you don't get this rush all at once?
Absolutely. And the other piece of it is, even as somebody's setting up a new account, go live, and have all of your historical data in one system and kind of those different options. So that's also something to consider if you're talking to somebody in September. Why not pull it in? Why not have, the same company do your W-2s instead of finishing with an old provider, starting with a new provider in January, and then having your W-2s roll over?
Okay. Your billing, and I'm not going to ask for specifics, but is it per head? How's it
Yeah,
billed generally?
typically payroll will work that you have a base company or you have a base fee for the company and then a per employee cost. Dominion is unique that we can either bill per payroll. So if you're weekly, bi-weekly, we can bill towards that payroll, or we can bill on a flat monthly, and then you can run as many payrolls as you need. So a lot of times owner onlys that then have some contractors that are working 1099 will do that monthly flat and then have us keep track of their 1099s and do the direct deposit in that piece. So it's really customizable to what works for you. A lot of times as you meet with different industries in that part, you're like, this is what's worked best for a lot. Bi-weekly can be hard for a lot of small businesses because they don't know if they're going to pay for 2 or 3 payroll processings that month. So they may choose to stay on a flat monthly billing.
I'm glad you mentioned 1099s because I was not thinking about that. And I bet a lot of employers of different sizes don't think about they think, oh, well, I have all 1099s, so they can't help me.
No, absolutely. Keep it organized in that part, especially if you're an owner only paying yourself and then you've got some contractors. You're already paying for the EIN, and that's the big part of the payroll cost. That run your payrolls or run your 1099s through payroll, and then it's a lot more organized at year end.
What about taxes?
Yeah.
Just payroll taxes? Do you handle or have accountants that handle other
Yeah. So
types
we are
of
going to
taxes?
pay all of your payroll taxes, your unemployment, what's running through payroll. We do partner with quite a few CPAs that may pay different pieces like sales tax and kind of that piece, but we are just paying everything payroll related.
Okay. But if I said, I hate my accountant, it's a good time since I'm working with you to look at another one. Do you have preferred vendors? Do you just have your own network of related professionals? How does that work?
Yeah, so I work very closely, especially with Kentucky and all of the locals, with quite a few CPAs. So a lot of times it's having that conversation and making sure somebody has a good business foundation. So, do they have a good CPA accountant relationship? Do they have a good banker? What's their health insurance like? And as you're kind of discovering all of that in the business, discovering what those relationships are, happy to make intros if that makes sense for the person, and also kind of figuring out what they're looking for. Some people prefer working with a single accountant. Some people prefer working with a larger or a smaller group, and kind of what makes sense for you and your business. There's also a lot of people that will, specialize in certain industries, and that ties into it as well.
Mm-hmm. I bet you don't have a vendor for marketing.
I do. Do you know Mark Stein?
What?
Do you know Mark Stein?
I've heard of him.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that there's that many people, that business owners, that think that broadly when they're talking to you. But you're right, you really do have an excellent resource to pass along to them.
I do.
What haven't I asked you? You see, I'm pretty curious.
Yeah.
And I've had a good bit of general business experience, but what haven't we talked about that you would like to focus on, and usually do if you're talking to a new client?
Yeah. So I will kind of say to people, the strength of outsourcing payroll is just your employees having access, as well as that data security. Your payroll system has a lot of sensitive information. Be it we offer, it's an included service of the employment verification, so that, if they're getting a loan on a Friday afternoon, you're not there confirming dates. They can print their own pay stubs. That's a really big piece. And then just the payroll taxes and the liabilities that we take on, even if you're a small company, that consistency is huge, and it's a very small cost versus kind of if you forget to make a tax payment and the penalties that are attached to it are, one of the main reasons for small businesses. For larger businesses, it's the payroll integration and, are your employee reviews online? As you get a new hire, what is their onboarding and training experience like? And, is that consistent? Is that consistent across the individuals involved as well as the time frame that they're coming in? So I think those are all kind of key pieces for why to outsource payroll. And, a lot of times when you sit down with people, it costs way less than they think when they kind of consider how much time they're spending and, what value their time is.
Right. And I mean, if you have an HR team, you're going to have, and let's say you have 20 people, you're going to have one person devoted to payroll and the related services. So there's a full-time employee that you don't have to have.
And the cost savings for like the HR is huge versus hiring a full-time employee. Same thing with the assist. If you want to automate payroll, I love having that for business owners who forget to pay their employees. The worst feeling that you can have as a payroll provider is when a business owner calls you on Friday, they just forgot to process payroll. You're then doing a same day payroll. It's great to have that option of, okay, let's look at assist. Let's see you taking that over, because that's a key thing to your employees.
Yeah, that's usually a sore spot with employees not getting paid on time.
It is, but it happens.
Yep. Even in my case, with a PayPal vendor, my biggest problem is actually not reporting the payment to my bookkeeping team, but it's actually pushing that button to send the money.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I pay attention to all the documentation. It's just not paying the vendor.
Yes, no, or forgetting to hit submit. It happens. People forget about the holidays. We just had Juneteenth. We'll have July 4th. So you need to submit your payroll early. It's a bank holiday. Those are the ones that catch people off guard. And then I'll kind of finish with the ending piece for Dominion, and it's really their customer service. If you hit those different things where you forget to hit payroll and that piece, you've got me as the sales rep, and then also our customer service team. They're going to answer. They track it on LinkedIn for how quickly they're answering and walk you through how to solve those different problems because they're urgent right then and there. You've got to get your employees paid. That's key. So be it that you've got to submit somebody's payroll, we'll walk you through, okay, what's the options? How are we fixing it?
So your role is sales and account management, managing the broad relationship, and you've got customer service reps who do the nitty-gritty with the client?
Yeah. So we have a customer service team. Once you're a new client, there's an implementation team that's going to get you used to the system, get you onboarded. Customer service reps, then there's the different departments, general ledger that's going to integrate if you've got QuickBooks and you want that tied in, benefits team to set up your benefits, but all of kind of the different pieces of services, there's teams that are there to help you set up each of those different pieces.
Mm-hmm. What types of professionals do you network with the best? Who's a good natural mutual referral source for you?
Yeah. So anybody that is in that B2B world that is the center of influence, so bankers, CPAs, insurance brokers, any type of business advisors that are there for the administrative, huge ones. And, anyone that's asking, same way as like we were talking about it, what's your relationship with your CPA? What's your relationship with your banker? Asking people, who's your payroll provider? How's it going?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's a big one that has been big, but is likely to be huge, and that's security, data security with AI coming on big time.
Yeah.
What, I know that I'm sure you guys keep up with the latest security for your data, but when you're at a conference or when you're at a meeting with your colleagues, what's being discussed regarding security and related to AI?
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean, for us, even there's the two verifications of after a phone call, email verification. As you're going into the system, there's the pass keys, as well as it's sending a pin to your phone. I know they annoy people because it's one of those where you want to get in, but it's also for your data and your security. Just because your payroll account has all kinds of sensitive information. So constantly staying up to date on that changing market.
okay. What are the other hot topics when you go to a conference or go to a company-wide meeting, or seminar? What are the hot topics in your field?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's a talent pool, and a lot of people struggling to get employees, keep employees, and that aspect. So you will see a lot, on hiring, applicant tracking, getting, the benefits for people, and that side. I think that's a major struggle that, when you're in the industry, when you're sitting with business owners, that's across the board. You hear staffing struggles.
What about work from home? Has that mostly settled down? Seems like the norm is a couple of days a week in the office.
Yeah,
What
it
what do
really
you
just
see?
depends on the industry. You kind of get it across the board. For that aspect, certain industries work a lot differently remote versus in person, and kind of adapting to each business owner. For us, it's, learning the work locations as well as the employees, address so that we have the taxes set up correctly and that piece. So, if you are moving around in those work from home environments, making sure it's updated in payroll so you're paying the correct taxes are a huge one.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Update your information.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah,
Um, what's a question that you wish I had asked and I didn't?
I think we covered it all.
All right. Um, let me just think. I'm thinking out there in the future. Um, I guess in the short term, we're looking at some real changes in employment, especially for white collar knowledge workers. And I think this era of AI is going to be the first time that college educated, white collar knowledge workers working at their computer, whether it be at the office or at home, are going to be the first ones that are going to be displaced. And the plumbers and electricians and construction workers are going to be the last to be replaced. What are you, what are some of the big themes that you're looking at? And is your company looking at some education and guidance for the employers around this,
Yeah,
which is it's inevitably going to be a huge transition for people.
and it's definitely a changing landscape. And I think it's, figuring out how to stay up to date, how to stay educated, and how to stay adaptive. Just because everything is evolving rapidly, and just, staying as nimble as you can.
Some podcasters that I listen to that are in the um, venture capital area, they're talking about billion-dollar companies that may have a handful of employees, um, just creating because of AI being able to expand people's ability to do things and the amount of work that they can do. Um, there's likely to be some negative effects on payroll companies if payroll really starts to get hacked and
Absolutely.
reduced.
I mean, and that's kind of the security features that you have to keep of just how you send information, making sure that you're sending it securely, keeping it secure, just because there's a lot of sensitive information.
Yeah. But you may, as a payroll company, you may need to, and I know this is not at your pay level, but you may need to change your billing not to be so dependent upon headcount, more based on services provided than headcount, because historically that's been a major fee model.
Yeah. And I think that typically in the industry, usually there's a base fee and then a per employee cost. And that may be something that kind of evolves as everything evolves.
Yeah. Because if you've got a $1 billion company with 5 employees, that's different.
Yeah. No. And I mean, it's an evolving. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's sort of wind up here.
Yeah.
Let me thank you first for joining us on the podcast. And I'll do, as I'm about to exit, I'll do a reverse shot and show you where I am, and the audience. But I really appreciate the extent of your knowledge, certainly your willingness to share it. So check out information. We'll put Ashley's contact information in the show notes, but go ahead and give us your email address, website. Go ahead and give us the basics, and phone if you want to.
So Dominion Payroll, my email is aevans@dominionpayroll.com. My cell phone number is 502-419-1737. Definitely feel free to call or text or email. And then I'm also on LinkedIn under Ashley Evans as well.
Got it. And so we'll put that down in the show notes if you missed it. And if you want more information about Outmarket.pro, we're a digital marketing company with divisions that also handle back office for insurance companies and small business services, like bookkeeping, etc., and virtual assistants. So if you like this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, also hit that notification bell. And let me see if I can flip around my camera here. It may be cruel to do it, but I will go ahead and do it. Let's see. Share screen. Here, I can just reverse my camera.
100 plus in Kentucky. We're all wishing that there was an ocean breeze.
Yeah. Well, there is. I'm sitting under a couple of palm trees, but you see everybody's in full swing here at the beach. And it's mid to high 90s here today too. So everybody's covering up and got gazebos out. So anyway, thank you for being a good sport and doing this podcast here with me, or not with me, but online. And we'll just have to have our next meeting at the beach.
Awesome. Sounds good. Talk to you soon. See you, Mark. Bye.
Okay, thanks. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Bye-bye.